6-foot table talk. As we find out who walks the walk, it's the bane of our existence to practice social distance. 6-foot table talk.
You're listening to me, Chris Jordan, originally from Fort Worth, Texas. Been having a lot of these conversations over the past several years, and I learn something new every time, and so this is no different. Sitting over here is
Jonathan Sprang, and I've participated in a lot of those conversations, and I've shared with my Sunday school class that I somewhat avoided them on social media. I tried not to speak up because I felt like I wasn't an expert. I felt like I don't know, I can't understand, I can't put myself in their shoes, in anyone's shoes except my own. So I cannot speak to this issue, but this year it has become more clear and it's become more important, I feel, that I have to join the conversation. I had to stop being silent because my silence was being viewed as complicit in the injustice. And so I'm here to listen. I'm here to offer support in any way that I can from my experience, from what I've read. But I'm no expert. But I appreciate the invite to be a part of this conversation, especially with you. So thank you for joining me here too.
Awesome. Well, you brought up an interesting point, and this is something that I think about whenever something happens in the media or an event, or the conversation is, gone mainstream again, right? It just happens over and over again, is silence. I sometimes wonder what people are thinking who aren't saying anything, in my perspective. Like the people around me, they're going to come to my defense if someone's, attacking me or putting me down or making me feel less than, or are they going to stand up for me, or are they quiet because they agree with this other perspective, and rather than have the conversation with me, they rather just be quiet. So I think that's an important thing. And one thing I will say, that given the George Floyd and some of these cases, where one of the most incredible thing is I've gotten so many messages from Messenger, through Facebook, through Instagram, so many conversations with people that, during the Michael Brown cases where we're going at it, tick for tack, comment, and all of a sudden they're trying to understand. They're like, wow, this is a problem. And it kind of brought up it made me think about, Selma, when they crossed the bridge, where no one really believed what was happening until the media actually showed people and said, hey, this is not he said, she said, this isn't, this isn't fabricated, this isn't, shaped around to form a bias. This is actually real life. This is what's happening. And so people started to be more aware, and they had to make a choice on, am I going to stick my head in the sand, or am I going to accept this reality? And the next choice is, what am I going to do about it? Yeah. And so fortunately, as history's shown, is that was the shift, and it did cause people to do something about it rather than what they had done for decades and centuries before.
I think that is the same thing that's happening right now in the last few years, is that, people start to think like, oh, this is happening more. It's like, no, it's not happening more. Yeah. It's been happening. It's been happening for centuries. Just like this, we just didn't know about it. And now we're being shown on a daily basis, it seems, this is still happening. In the wake of George Floyd, in the wake of this big movement, Breonna Taylor, in the wake of these things, we still see daily where this brutality and this racism rears its ugly head, and it seems like there's still people out there that don't care, that don't see it, that don't want to see it, and they've put the blinders on. And I realized, like I said, this year, like I can't. I have to get to the bottom of this. I have to start to understand. I have to start to listen. And like I said, immediately I started listening to podcasts that I care about, and started asking, what is it that I can do? And because I can't be silent anymore. Like I can't. I grew up in Jacksonville, Florida. I had the privilege of going to a middle school and a high school that was a magnet school. So it was busing in students from all over the city. So I went to middle school and high school in a very eclectic, very culturally diverse situation. I had friends of all different colors, shapes, and sizes, and it was so life-giving. I didn't realize how life-giving it was until I went to a predominantly white college, and I was like, oh my goodness, like there's something missing. I miss the life that comes from just being in contact with people that are different than me. But I wanted that back, and I realized like there's something going on here, and I can't just keep being silent. I can't just put my head down anymore. I have to figure out what's going on. I have to start listening more.
So I remember, so I played soccer growing up. I'd be huge if I didn't. If anyone knows me, you know my diet. But I think I'm set for life. But no, so I played soccer growing up. And so, I remember one time played in Louisiana, and some kid called me the N-word and stuff. And like, I remember like growing up, the things that kind of shape you is, I feel like a lot of kids, if they're like me, is that you just internalize it. You don't know how to talk about it. You just internalize it. It just stays with you and you think about it because you're trying to understand it, And so like, I remember, let's see, for example, let's see, like college, for example. Actually, back up. So I went to public school from all the way up till junior year of high school. Then I switched to private school. Went to a private school in Fort Worth, and it was pretty much one social class. And me and my sister and a couple others made up all the minorities. And it was a situation where Black people describe as you start to feel your race. When you're in a melting pot, you don't feel your race as much as when someone takes you out of that pot. And so I remember that experience was so traumatic for me for so many reasons. Was because these people had no understanding of any culture outside of their own. The only thing they knew about Black people was what they saw on MTV or BET, or what they heard, or the lyrics to songs or something like that. It was so far removed, coming in from public school. They had this idea of me that, I was going to be the guy with the hoodie or have this sort of swag or something like that. And no, I'm just an athlete. Like I said, my mom set me up right, they're very loving parents, and we knew what we got to do. And so one of the things, I'm gonna elaborate a little bit, is that a lot of Black people will tell you is about adapting, and how we learn to adapt in life to get to where we know we got to go. And so we realize that our limits, there's limits of things we can do. I realize that, I can't wear a hoodie where I want to wear a hoodie. I realize I can't dress this way or say this way or listen to things this way or go to this place, or there's things that I can't do because it would limit the opportunity. I don't have that freedom. And so, it can be everything from how we talk. It can be from everything from, you know, the people we associate ourselves with, and it could be everything from, oh gosh, it can be the thing. The most painful part is the thing is sometimes when you should speak up and you don't speak up because you realize, hey, I know I should say something, but this person's not going to understand. And if we have a disagreement, there goes my opportunity. There goes this. There goes this. I've got to find another path, you know, or do I really want to make this awkward? Situation with your friend when you said boy, you know, there are times where, for example, when I'm doing a show, is I'll have people come up and say things, and it's like they don't realize how bad it comes across. But I've got to think like, okay, you know, Dave Chappelle has a skit. It's called Keeping It Real. I'm not sure if you've seen it before, but basically you can keep it real and maybe get the plug pull and have to send your band home because you said you responded the way, you know, or you could, you know, adapt to it and just survive the situation.
Yeah.
And that's what a lot of times you'll find a lot of successful Black people do is they're just good at surviving situations.
Yeah.
And because they know that, hey, like this moment right here, like I'm resilient. My people are resilient. I'm gonna press through. Like I'm not gonna sink to their level. You know, it's not worth it. There's something greater I'm after.
I think about, you know, when you're listing off things, I thought reading an article just this week around hair, that hair for the African American community is a huge deal. And how many, I mean, the kid that had dreadlocks at a wrestling competition and the ref made him shave them, cut them off right there in the middle of, like, that's something I don't think about. I don't understand that culture. I don't understand how important that is, but I didn't then. I'm becoming more aware now how important that is to the culture and to your identity. And I'm told my whole life, just be yourself. And I get to just be myself. I'm a white man. I get to be I'm tall, I'm somewhat attractive. I'm not gonna say I'm you know, the most attractive person out there, but I ain't ugly. So I can just be myself because of this color of my skin, the height of my stature, and the sex of my gender. Like I can just be myself. And that doesn't work for other people. They have to lose themselves. They have to lose parts of themselves in order to try and make it in this world that is predominantly the power people, the white male of America. You know, I think about movies and TV shows that have tried to highlight this, like Sorry to Bother You, where the story of where they talk white on the phone so they can get the better deal and they can make the better money because they know how to talk white. I think there's a horror story, a horror movie coming out later this year that's about hair. It's about her changing her hair and her hair becoming this thing that she has to fear. I'm just like, these are stories that I want to continue to fill my mind with, and so that I can continue to educate myself to the Black experience. You know, I actually went and saw the movie Get Out with a friend of mine, a Black friend of mine, and there was a sense where I didn't fully understand what Jordan Peele was trying to say at that moment, but I certainly understand it more now. And the way that white males or white people have the tendency to think that they can have whatever they want, and if they've got the money, they can get it, even if that means that they can have another person, and they can have that body, and they can have that person. And the fact that we have used and abused Black bodies for our entire existence of the country, we built America on the backs of Black people, and it breaks my heart that we still are struggling with this 400, 500, 600 years later. It's recognizing the roots of this thing. I think as we were talking about perspective, as we were talking about the idea that this is bigger than the moments, that the simple moments. It's bigger than the police brutality. It's bigger than the murders. It's all-encompassing of American culture and getting jobs and finding your way in the world, I didn't have to think about any of that. You talk about opportunities. I didn't have to think about any of that. I just did what I did, and I got opportunity. I didn't have to reposition myself. There are times where you have to, just socially, of course. Everybody does. But there's a huge disparity between the times I had to curb what I wanted to say versus what others do. I think of the way that females have to do in the workplace. They have to resist the jokes and not speak up so that they don't look like, a B word. Like there's a disparity between what my life was and what others' life are in this country. And that's where the equality, that's what we're talking about. I feel like when we're talking about the disparity of equality in this country and what we're striving for is to where we can all say, just be yourself, and that will be enough. Because right now it's not.
You said a few really, you said a lot of interesting things, but there's a couple things I want to pull out. Identity and culture, like Black people are constantly defining their culture. The roots of our culture, as far as for Black Americans, is that we harp on our resilience, the fact that, the amount of persecution and oppression we've dealt with and how we persevere to today, to where we can be right here. Like if you look at what we've been through, there's no reason why we should even be alive today or be in existence. There's been a lot of sacrifices, and so we've been trying to own our own culture, and it's always been a lot of times been hijacked. Our country's rooted in supremacy, on white supremacy, and it's it's one of those things where it kind of is what it is, and it shouldn't be that way, but that's the very foundation. It's like having conversations with people who think that, for example, supremacy is telling people how they should protest. Supremacy is telling people where they should protest. Supremacy is saying, you guys are distracting. I don't want to pay attention to that. You're affecting my life. You're affecting my you're affecting my newsfeed.
You're blocking my streets.
Yeah.
Like, I got to get to work. Why don't you just be quiet and go somewhere else?
And so, like, what a lot of those people don't understand is that, the more they try to push off and ignore, the louder the voice is going to get. And as you see now in a lot of the protests and things like that, and nobody wants to riot, but what you're seeing a lot of is a lot of diversity. There's a lot of people who are coming together, who are saying that, like, we're all people, we're all Americans. We should all be treated like it. Another point was, when you talk about like, cop killings and things like that, every Black person knows that being killed by a cop is the extreme. That's the extreme. There's a scale of abuse from police. And so every Black man has a story. Everyone has a story. And so the premise behind our stories, though, is one simple thing. You're guilty until proven innocent. And that idea is what we have to survive.
Jesus is asked, what's the greatest commandment? And he says, love God. And everybody in the crowd goes, yep, I knew that was the one. I knew that was the one. All I had to do was love God. I got that on lock. And Jesus said, but the second one is just like it. Meaning the second one is just as important and probably linked. You have to love your neighbor. Who's my neighbor? He's the person that you most despise. That's your neighbor. The story of the prodigal or the good Samaritan. It was the the Samaritans left on the side. No, the person is left on the side of the road, and the religious people pass, the political people pass. The Samaritan, the person they most despised, comes in and says, "I'll take care of you." And Jesus says, "Which one was neighborly, the one that took care of him. They couldn't even say the Samaritan because they despised the Samaritan so much. So when we're talking about loving God, we cannot love God. Jesus says it's impossible to love God if we don't also love the person that we most despise. So that's the level that it's hard for me, because I see so many people, so many Christians fighting on this issue and saying things that I never would say to my best friend, like to my worst enemy. I'd never say things like that. To saying things to me on social media when I'm trying to join and be an ally, and I say that very clearly understanding that what I am suffering in any of this conversation pales in comparison to what your people have suffered for hundreds of years. So I'm in no way equating what I've suffered in any of this to what you guys have suffered. I'm saying I'm attempting to join and understand and listen, because in my mind, it's the only way that I could truly love Christ, is to also love those that are the disenfranchised of the society. Just one more quick thing Jesus said to us is when he speaks about at the end of time, when people come to God and ask, or want to enter whatever that next thing is, and Jesus welcomes the people that when I was hungry, you fed me. When I was thirsty, you gave me something to drink. When I was in prison, you came. When I was naked, you clothed me. When did we do those things? We never saw you hungry. We never saw you. What are you talking about? It's when you did it to the least of these. When you took care of the people that are on the outskirts, the people that are crying out for help. When you help them, you're helping me.
I'm always going to show you compassion. I'm always going to be respectful. I'm not going to make fun of you. I'm not going to put you down. I'm not going to do all the things that even you may want to do to me, because that is contrary to what God wants us to do.